Randy Slechta has more than 30 years' experience in the leadership, management, personal and professional development industry. He has coached and trained thousands of people from all over the world. Under Randy's leadership, SMI and LMI have grown tremendously around the globe. Over the past 20 years, international sales have grown over 400%. Mr. Selecta's expertise is recognized throughout the world as he has given over 1,000 keynote speeches to more than 1 million people in 40 different countries. He has spoken on many different topics, including leadership, people development, sales, change, innovation, and current business trends. Mr. Slechta and Paul Meyer have co-authored numerous best-selling courses, including Effective Leadership Development, Effective Team Dynamics, Effective Selling Strategies, Effective Strategic Leadership, Effective Personal Productivity, Effective Personal Leadership, Effective Motivational Leadership, and Effective Communication. Randy and Paul also co-authored the book, The 5 Pillars of Leadership. This book lays out a blueprint for leaders in the 21st century and has been translated into 9 languages. Randy personally created the total leader concept used around the world for developing truly effective leaders. Randy spends his hard-earned personal time with his wife Jana and 3 daughters, Morgan, Brooke, and Kelsey. Please welcome the CEO of LMI, SMI, FMI, Mr. Randy Slechta.
Good morning. Wow, what a start. What a start. Merci, Henry, Beverly, I can't thank you enough for coming this far and being with us and making those presentations. You know, last night I asked you not to do so well because I had to follow you, and you didn't listen to my instructions, though. Well, bringing your son into it, that's not even fair. But thank you again for those presentations. Wow, how good were those? Well, I get to talk on one of my favorite subjects this morning, whatever you ardently desire. This is something that is so critical, not only to our clients, not only to the world, but to our own organization. Desire is the ultimate quality of successful people. Paul Meyer said, desire transforms average people into true champions in every walk of life. In fact, that's printed in your agenda. So if you're an average performer and want to be a true champion in this business or any other business, desire is that quality that you need. You know, I wouldn't be standing here without desire. When I first moved to Waco 30 years and 2 months ago, I drove down, it's kind of a joke around the home office. I drove down in a 1975 sky blue Buick Century. And I say sky blue, it was partly sky blue and it was partly rust because it was rusted out on the bottom. I'm from South Dakota where it snows a lot, and so when you drive cars in the snow, it gets rusted a lot. And so this car was very old. It barely made it to Waco, Texas. In fact, after I'd been here a few months and I finally sold the car, I sold it for $200 so they could use it in a demolition derby. But when I first started with SMI in 1985, I was in charge of recruiting new franchisees in the U.S. Well, for the first 2 or 3 months, I failed miserably. I was totally worthless. I could not recruit anybody. And I knew that if I did not change what I was doing, I wouldn't last much longer. And I went home one night, and I got visibly angry with myself. How could I let this happen? I got visibly upset. I was walking around kicking the furniture. My wife knows about that. She's seen me do that once or twice. But I was so upset. And that anger drove me. I went back to work the next day and I doubled my activity. Doubled my activity. I started making 1,000 phone calls per month to prospective franchisees. I said, if I can't do it through skill, I will do it through work. And for the next 3 months, I made 1,000 phone calls every month. And through that activity, through that sheer just work, I stumbled upon, I accidentally recruited 6 new franchisees. I mean, not through my skill, not through my incredible talent, just through accidentally running into the right people at the right time. It was only through that desire that I was able to do that. And from that activity, I learned how to do it. I learned how to become successful. I learned the skills that I have. I put in those 5,000 hours, 10,000 hours to master what I was doing. That's what desire can bring to you. William James said, compared to what we ought to be, we are only half awake. And that is so true. Compared to what we ought to be, we are only half awake. My goal this morning is to wake you up. My goal this morning is to wake up that sleeping giant within each of us. We can accomplish so much more than we're doing. We can achieve so many more of our goals. We can help so many more people. We can create so many more World Clients of the Year with similar stories. But we have to wake up. We have to energize ourselves through ardent desire. So this session is actually kind of a dichotomy, because this session is about want to. You know, this whole conference, you're having a lot of sessions about how to sell, how to facilitate, how to recruit. But my session's about wanting to. But I'm going to talk about how to develop the want to. So it's also a how-to session. But it's mostly about developing that want to. Gandhi said the difference between what we do and what we are capable of doing would suffice to solve most of the world's problems. The difference between what you're currently doing and what you're capable of doing will solve all of your problems. You don't need to be any more than you're capable of being. Your capability, your potential is all that you need. You just need to fulfill it. One of the problems is we're looking for the wrong solutions. You see, and write this down. This is so important. You cannot solve a want-to problem with a how-to solution. Let me repeat that. You cannot solve a want-to problem with a how-to solution. Most of you here are looking for how-to solutions. How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I get better at this? And that's fine. But if you don't have enough want to, it does not matter how much how-to you have. You still won't succeed. If you don't have the burning desire, a problem, a challenge, an obstacle will stop you. You see, the thing that overcomes the problems, that overcomes the challenges, that breaks through the obstacles is the want to. It's the desire.
There's a Russian proverb that says the same hammer that shatters the glass forges the steel. And if you have the kind of desire that we're talking about here, it can burn its way through any obstacle, and it can carve its way through any wood, and it can blast its way through any rock. I'm telling you, you can have what you want to have, and you can be who you want to be if you choose and if you make that resolve.
Desire is what burns through every obstacle It's what cuts through every challenge. It's what overcomes every problem in your life. You know, Tudor said, I will make it. I will make it. I will make a way. I will find a way. Nothing will stop me. You know, my daughter, Kelsey, most of you met her at Summers Mill. She's my youngest daughter, plays volleyball. And Baylor recruited her to come play volleyball, which has been her goal for the last 6 years. That she wanted to play volleyball at Baylor University. But that's just part of the story. 6 years ago, she was in 7th grade. She was at a small private school. There was 6 girls in her entire class. Just enough for a volleyball team. And she played volleyball, and one of the parents actually played volleyball at Baylor. And so she was going to run a small volleyball clinic in the summer. And so we said, okay, Kelsey, we'll send you to the volleyball clinic. So she went to the volleyball clinic and just had a great time. But when the clinic was over and we were picking Kelsey up, the parent that was teaching the clinic pulled us aside and said, I need to talk to you. She said, I've never seen such good hands in a kid her age. You need to get her lessons. You need to get her involved in a select volleyball program. So we did. We got her in lessons. We had her try out for Waco Juniors select volleyball. And the first year, she made what was called the B team. The select team had 2 teams for that age group. She made the B team, the second team. But we thought, okay, it's her first year, she's learning. And she played that year and did okay. And the next year, they had tryouts again. And the way they did it was kind of strange. You'd go to tryouts, and they said, okay, we will call you in the next 2 days if you've made the team. And so we tried out on Sunday, and so they were going to get called either Monday or Tuesday. And so Monday went by, and she hadn't gotten called. So Tuesday comes, and we go through the whole day, and she still hadn't been called. And that night, we're sitting in our family room, and she said, Dad, there's 19 girls have been called. I'm not going to make it. I said, well, we don't know that. Well, let's just wait and see. Still didn't get a call that night. She goes to bed literally crying. Gets up and goes to school the next morning. And I'm thinking, man, what am I going to do? Is there another team we can go get a tryout for or whatever? That morning, we get called. Yes, we want her on the team. She got the last spot. Fine, we're on the team. The next year, she made the second team again. The year after that, she made the first team, but she was the second setter. The year after that, she made the first team, and she became the first setter. Then she started high school. Freshman year, she made the freshman team, but was the number 2 setter. As a sophomore, she made the JV team, was the number 2 setter. As a junior, she finally made the varsity team, but was the number 2 setter. This year, her senior year, she was on the varsity. She was the number 1 setter. She was the number 4 in the country in assist. All from desire. She has worn out a Making of a Champion program. She's on her second one already because she absolutely worn out the lesson on desire. You cannot imagine what it's like to have a child that understands that grasps that develops that desire. And that's not the whole story either. That person that convinced us to put her in lessons also had a daughter, a couple years younger than Kelsey. And this daughter was a volleyball fanatic, and she was incredible for her age. And her and Kelsey developed a very close friendship. Her name was Molly. And they would play together and take lessons together and develop together. But about 4 years ago, Molly developed brain cancer and died. And Kelsey told her mother, I will play for Molly. I will do what I can to help Molly reach her goal of playing at Baylor University. And she will be there starting June 1st. You see, desire is infinitely more than wanting or wishing, more than compulsion or stimulation. Desire is an overwhelming inner demand for change, a personal rejection of circumstances as they are, and the willingness to make any sacrifice to bring about that change. This phrase from the programs, this is from Dynamics of Success Attitudes, Lesson 2, Desire of a Champion, is to me one of the most powerful quotes from our programs. It explains what desire is. Desire is not just this, I'm motivated. Desire is just not that, oh, I want to achieve this. Desire is not just, oh, you know, I'm happy, I'm excited, I'm stimulated. You have to understand that desire is an overwhelming inner demand for change. Not just for a little bit more, not just for, life to go on, for change. A personal rejection of circumstances as they are. And the willingness to make any sacrifice to bring about that change. So how do you develop that burning desire? How do you develop that intense, white-hot flame? Well, the problem is, most of us plateau when we lose the tension between where we are and where we ought to be. You see, desire comes out of that tension. You've all seen the example of a rubber band. Here's where we are, here's where we want to be. We've got to have both points to create tension in the rubber band. If you don't know where you are or where you're going, there's no tension. The rubber band is limp. It's that tension that pulls you towards your goal. Peter Singh, in the 5th discipline, said the gap between vision and reality is a source of energy. If there was no gap, there would be no need for any action to move toward the vision. It's that gap that creates the energy, the tension, the desire to change your life. In fact, the way I look at it is it's kind of like a teeter-totter, if you will. On one side, we have current reality. That's where we are today. That's our current life, our current circumstances, our current situation, our current success, our current failure. We balance that with a future goal. Now the question is, which has greater weight? You see, a future without desire promises nothing better than the offerings of the past or present. If you don't have desire, nothing's going to change. And so what you're stuck with without desire is a life of just current reality. That's what you're stuck with. If you don't have desire, this is as good as it gets. It won't get any better. So how do we break out of that? Well, a quote you might remember, if you aren't making the progress you would like to make and are capable of making, it's simply because your goals are not clearly defined. Now, most of you in here will probably say, I've got goals. I've got these goals. I know exactly what I want to achieve. Most of your goals are not clearly defined, or you'd already be on your way to achieving them. If you aren't making the progress you would like to make and are capable of making, it's simply because your goals are not clearly defined. So how do we define them? How do we get those goals clearly defined? SMART goals, of course. I'm preaching to the choir here. We all know about SMART goals, but do we practice it? And do we truly understand what SMART goals mean? Of course, the S means specific. This is probably one of the most important aspects of a SMART goal. Is it specific? All of you know I love to play golf. And my wife knows that when the Masters on, don't try to talk to me because I'm watching the Masters. And it was especially hard this year because it was just last weekend, right before our convention and everything, so I'm working while I'm trying to watch it. So I'm trying to multitask and do two things. But what an incredible Masters. The winner was Jordan Spieth from Dallas. I've actually played with Jordan about a year ago. Just a little side story. We started out, and I'm 2 under par through 3 holes, and I'm 1 ahead of him. After the first 9, I'm just 2 behind. And I'm thinking, you know, I'm keeping up with this guy. At the end of the round, I shoot 74. I mean, that's a good round. We're playing a very difficult golf course. He beats me by 10 strokes. He shoots 64. And it made it look so easy. The guy's incredible. But I bring him up because if you watched the Masters and you heard him and his caddy talking, before every shot, his caddy would say, pick a small target, Jordan. You see, the Masters is very unique because Augusta National, the golf course where they play it at, the greens are very slopey and undulating. And if you hit the ball in the wrong spot on the green, it's almost impossible to make a putt or even get 2 putts in. It takes you 3 putts. So you've got to hit it to a very small part of each green to be close to the hole. And so his caddy would say, pick a small target. Not the green, not the left side of the green, not the front of the green. Pick a small target. I want to hit it 5 feet from the back right edge. Specific. Then even if he just missed that, guess what? He's still pretty close to the hole. Make your goal specific. Number 2, measurable. Can you measure the goal? If you can't measure it, it's not a smart goal. Number 3, attainable. Can you attain it? Number 4, realistic. It's got to be something based on where you're at. Don't set unrealistic goals. If the most you've ever made is $50,000 a year, don't set a goal to make $1 million next year. That's unrealistic. It's not impossible, I know, but it's unrealistic. You're setting yourself up for failure. But where most people go wrong, where most people don't clearly define their goals, and where most people don't develop the desire, is making their goals tangible. You see, most people don't understand what a tangible goal is. They think, well, as long as it's measurable, it must be tangible. Not necessarily. You see, a tangible goal, what does tangible mean to you, right? It means something you can touch, you can feel, you can see, right? It's tangible. What are all those things? Touch, feel, see, smell. Senses. Your goal has to be sensory. You see, the key to a clearly defined goal is your brain able to actually experience the goal today? Experience what it would be like when you achieve the goal. Know what it would look like. Know what it would smell like. Know what it would hear like. Know what it would feel like. And know what it would feel like emotionally. Those are the keys to making goals tangible. Those are the keys to creating the desire. Because when you can do that, when you have that sensory aspect, that's when your mind begins to wonder, how do I achieve that? How do I get there? And starts working for you. And the key here is you must have at least 2 senses. See, most of us just define what it'll look like. That's not enough. You must add a second sense. Why? Because it's a memory trigger. Now, I've done a lot of reading and research on the psychology and the brain and everything, and I don't want to bore you with all that. But the brain works with memory triggers. I'll give you an example. When I go back to South Dakota and walk into my parents' house, if my mother's baking cookies, I instantly go back to memories of when I was 8 years old or 9 years old or 10 years old. The smell of the cookies instantly transforms me into memories of my childhood because they're linked. You need a second sense to create the memory trigger and to bring your goal to life. Another reason you need two senses is it makes your goals three-dimensional. Again, I don't want to get into scientific terminology, but a hologram is a three-dimensional image. Guess what you need to create a hologram? You need 2 points of reference. When you have 2 points of reference and two beams of light that hit each other, then it creates a three-dimensional image. If you have only 1 point of reference, you can't create a three-dimensional image. 2 points of reference, two senses to enliven your goals. Absolutely critical to creating smart goals. And when you do that, you now create a future goal that has more pull than current reality. You see, the problem that everybody has is current reality is already sensory rich. We already know what it looks like, smells like, sounds like to be in our current reality because we're living it. So to create enough desire to pull us out of that, we've got to create a very vivid sensory experience of our goal. You see, Paul Meyer was an absolute genius. You know, we cite his quote, and it was cited this morning already. Whatever you vividly imagine, all your desires, sincerely believe, enthusiastically act upon, and come to pass. What people don't understand is that's actually a formula for success. You cannot ardently desire anything unless you first vividly imagine it. It's the vivid imagination of your goal that creates the ardent desire. And you cannot sincerely believe in anything unless you have so much desire that you know it's going to happen. And you won't enthusiastically act upon something unless you believe that you have a good chance of success. So if you're not acting on your goals, it's because you don't have belief, which is because you don't have enough desire, which is because you haven't vividly imagined your goals. The key to ardent desire is vivid, imagined goals. We cannot become what we need to be by remaining what we are. You see, the problem that we all have is that we know what we are, and most of us are comfortable with it. Yesterday I said success breeds complacency, and complacency breeds failure. We're all in our comfort zones. We're all comfortable where we're at. But if you're comfortable, do you have an overwhelming inner demand for change? No. You don't. We have to create that overwhelming inner demand for change with a clear vision of what we want to achieve, of where we want to go. You know, there's a story back in 1952. Florence Chadwick was going to swim the channel in California between Catalina Island and the California coast. And she set off on a very foggy morning, got in the water and started swimming. It was very cold. She had her boats there next to her, guiding her along. And she was swimming and swimming, and she kept getting more and more tired. In fact, there were actually sharks in the water, and the boats had to fire at the sharks and scare them off. And finally, she looked at the boats and said, I just can't make it. I can't go any farther. And the boat said, no, you're getting close. You need to go. No, there's absolutely no way. I'm too tired. And so they finally pulled her out. And she found out that she was only a half a mile from shore. But the problem was she couldn't see the shore. And she said afterwards, she said, I'm not making excuses. But if I could have seen the shore, I would have never quit. A few months later, she set out on a clear day and made it easily. How clear are your goals? How clear is your vision of what you want to achieve? And how strong are your emotions and your senses about that goal. If you're not feeling a strong desire, you haven't made clear goals. I want to build an organization full of people that have intense, ardent desire. That's what we need to change the world. That's what we need to become the organization we have the potential to become. I'm willing to do whatever needs to be done to make that happen, and I hope you are as well. I'm looking for a few good people.
Find the business that you belong in. Find a business you can become passionate about. Find a business you can develop a sincere burning desire about. You don't have to stay in this business. We don't need your business. We only want your business if you're going to become a missionary and a zealot about this business, and a love for people and a passion for people and a desire to change their lives. And if you don't have that, don't stay. But if you do have it, multiply that desire, multiply that intensity, and get into action.
Thank you very much.